I traded this for an entire day. This is my 24-hour Apple Watch challenge. Welcome everybody to Apple Insider. It is Andrew here, and I want to ask you a question. Could you ditch your iPhone and solely use an Apple Watch? This is something that I wanted to find out if it was all possible, so I tried it. And these are my results. Before we get started, let's acknowledge a few things and how this whole process worked. First, I'm using an Apple Watch Ultra. If you were using an older Apple Watch that had compromised battery life, or even just a smaller version of the Apple Watch, this may not even been possible. You may run out of battery life throughout the whole day, especially using it as much as I was. So that's definitely something to take into consideration. The larger Apple Watch Ultra made a lot of this possible. I also have a cellular data plan. If you are leaving your house without your iPhone, your Apple Watch is going to do diddly without having a data plan. You're not going to text, you're not going to take phone calls, you're not going to stream any music, you're going to do whatever your watch can do, and that's it. No accessing data in any way. So that's definitely a big part of it. I would not have been able to do any of this if I didn't have that data plan. So those two things are important to note before we even get started. For anyone who also has been following this channel for a while, you may already know too, I'm a type 1 diabetic, which means I'm insulin dependent, I use an insulin pump, and I wear a constant glucose monitor to monitor my blood sugar throughout the day. Right now, it's not possible to solely rely on Apple Watch for this. The Dexcom G7 CGM connects to my iPhone, which then transmits that information to my Apple Watch. There's no direct connection between the Dexcom CGM and my Apple Watch. So, for this entire day, I did not have access to my CGM data on my watch. That's a big thing, but Dexcom says they're working on it, and there'll be an update for the G7 that will allow a direct connection with Apple Watch. You can move between your phone and your Apple Watch, leaving your iPhone behind, relying solely on the watch. But for right now, it wasn't even possible. But I didn't want to go into too much detail on it because I know it's a little bit of a niche situation. That said, let's go ahead and take a look at my day, relying solely on the Apple Watch. Felt like I started out my day great. I woke up in the morning and snoozed my alarm that had risen up on my Apple Watch. I always wear my Apple Watch to bed for sleep tracking purposes, so I already had it on, had my alarm built in. Great, good start to the day. I looked through the notifications. There was nothing really pressing that had come through overnight, though there were a couple emails that I wanted to address really quickly, so I did do those from bed before I even had gotten up. Fortunately, there's a little obnoxious. It's a little hard to type longer emails on the Apple Watch. The new swiping keyboard definitely makes it easier, but it's still not a super easy thing to do. I could have done this so much faster had I just been using my iPhone. I moved on to the kitchen, make some coffee. While I was making coffee, I do what I kind of instinctually do and go to check social media. But I didn't have my iPhone. So I tried to use my Apple Watch. There is no TikTok app or anything like that on Apple Watch, and there's no Twitter native client either. So I did use Chirp, so I could check on trending topics, my feed, any mentions, anything like that from my Apple Watch, but Chirp is still pretty minimal, and I didn't get much of a Twitter experience. I feel like I barely got my fill of social media. The same thing applied to Apple News. Apple News on the Apple Watch is pretty bare bones. It shows you like the 5 major headlines from the day and the lead, but if you want to read anything else, you gotta transfer it over to your iPhone. Especially if I'm using my Apple Watch solely without an iPhone, I kind of wish I could consume more news on it. I wouldn't mind sitting there and reading a little bit more while I'm waiting for something, whether it's in the car, while I'm waiting for my coffee, anything else. This is something that happened a lot throughout my day. I then made my way down to the studio, and this is where I felt like I got a good fill for the day because I could just rely on my Mac rather than my iPhone. I can text message, email, check on Twitter, everything from my Mac without using my iPhone. I swear it's not cheating because your Apple Watch is never going to be a Mac replacement. This is solely about replacing your iPhone. So I was able to get onto Twitter, I was getting onto everything else I would normally do on my iPhone, just on my Mac. Took care of my banking stuff, paid some bills, worked, edited videos, all the stuff I would normally do throughout the day. I did it on my Mac without ever having to touch my iPhone. By the late afternoon, it was time to run some errands, so I headed out of the studio, jumped in the car, and was on the road. Unfortunately, no CarPlay, so I had to listen to the radio in the car, which is a little annoying. There's like ads and stuff, and I don't like it. I want to listen to, CarPlay. I could have paired my AirPods to my Apple Watch and listened to audiobooks through Audible or Apple Music, but I didn't bring them with me. So I was stuck just listening to the radio. I pull up to Petco and I go in to pick up my pay ahead order. I did a mobile order on the computer, so I just had to kind of pull up and grab it. but I realized I forgot something. My wife texted me, came through on my Apple Watch, and she wanted me to get some teething bones for the dogs, so I ran back, grabbed a bag of bones, and go to checkout. Fortunately, real easy, just use Apple Pay, complete the purchase with my watch, and head out the door. I was then feeling a bit tired, so I decided to pick up some Starbucks. Again, really nice because Starbucks does have an Apple Watch app. So I opened the Apple Watch app, showed me how much balance I had in my card. Fortunately, I had funds on there, and I was able to just scan the barcode, pay for my drink through the drive-thru, and be on my way. Super easy, still just using my watch. But again, through all these things, waiting for my order to be picked up, waiting in the line at Starbucks, I just wish I had something to kind of occupy my time. It's not usual that I had to sit there and just be patient. You know, I felt kind of very much like a millennial, like I couldn't sit there for 5 minutes and just wait. But it does kind of remind you how much of an importance and how much of a addiction your phone can be sometimes, that you just have to keep looking at it and keep scrolling through feeds. So it was kind of nice not doing that for just even a day. Making it home, I wanted to get in a quick workout, so I did a very brief jog just to get my heart rate up a little bit before coming back inside. Used my Apple Watch to set my workout scene, which would close our front shades and turn on the lights in the living room. Hopped on the bike, started doing a workout there, all tracked via my Apple Watch. No issues. I could still be in communication while I was on the jog. I was still at home, so I had everything there. I could even control my Apple TV using the remote app on the Apple Watch, though it's more laborious, and I eventually just got up and grabbed the Siri remote because it was easier than constantly moving between it and swiping around on the Apple Watch. As I said about making dinner, I started to go to set a timer on my Apple Watch, and I realized that's a dumb idea. Why use that when I have better devices for it? So I just used my HomePod. Using your voice, using Siri, it was a lot easier that way. Now, one thing that I did run into here was I needed to look up some substitutions and a recipe, and I couldn't do that on my iPhone. I didn't have it, so I did pull out my iPad. I swear again, it's not cheating. People have iPads around their house. So I did use my iPad to look up some substitutions and a recipe using the Paprika app. It got me where I needed to go without having to pull my iPhone out. It was by the end of the day that I felt like I missed my phone the most. There's a lot of activities that I just couldn't partake in. Giving Harrison a bath, I usually play some like 90s music while he's getting his bath time, and I couldn't play many music because I didn't have a HomePod in there and I didn't have my iPhone speaker. I also wanted to take photos of him as he's crawling around and learning new skills, and I couldn't do that either. My wife was able to luckily do it on her phone, but I couldn't take any pictures because I just had my Apple Watch on me. And even just as I sat down on the couch to relax, I wanted to just read things, read the news, read whatever else had been going on throughout the day, and I had no way to do that. I could move to my iPad, but I was really trying to stick with, not finding workarounds for everything and relying on my Apple Watch as much as possible. I found myself doing more things that I normally would do, just a little longer. My wife and I talked more than we normally probably would have, in the evenings as we're both kind of unwinding for the day. I spent more time in my gardens weeding that I probably normally would have. I even spent more time hanging out with the chickens while I was feeding them and cleaning their coop. So it was nice to just be away from your phone a little bit and connect with these activities that you do, even if you miss out on things like playing music or taking photos. I think the Apple Watch was a great tool, and while it's still not going to replace my iPhone yet, it is impressive how far it's come in all these years and all these new features. Let me know what you guys think. Do you think you could replace your iPhone with an Apple Watch even for a day? Let me know in the comments or on Twitter at Andrew_OSU. Otherwise, stay tuned. I got a lot more videos coming your way.